In the small town of Willow Creek, where the air carried the scent of oil and pine, Ellie Harper was known as the mechanic's daughter. Her father, Tom, ran Harper's auto shop, a weathered brick building at the edge of Main Street. It was the kind of place where locals gathered not just for car repairs but for stories, coffee, and the comfort of familiarity. Ellie, at 24, was a fixture there, her auburn hair often tied back with a bandana, her hands smudged with grease, and her hazel eyes sharp with focus. She'd grown up in the garage, learning the hum of engines before she could read. But to the town she was still Tommy's girl, a shadow of her father's legacy, not quite her own. The garage was a man's world, or so the regulars liked to say. Old-timers like Frank, who leaned on his cane and grumbled about carburetors, or Jimmy, the trucker with a laugh like a foghorn, would tease Ellie mercilessly. "Stick to fetching wrenches, sweetheart," Frank would say, winking at the others. "Leave the real work to the boys." Jimmy would chime in, "Yeah, Ellie. Don't break a nail now." Their laughter would echo through the shop, a chorus of good-natured ribbing that stung more than Ellie let on. She'd smile, roll her eyes, and keep working, her hands steady as she rebuilt an alternator or diagnosed a misfire. But inside, each jab chipped away at her, a reminder that no matter how skilled she was, they saw her as less. Tom saw it too. He'd catch the glint of hurt in her eyes and pull her aside after closing. "They're just old dogs barking," he'd say, his voice rough but warm. "You're better than any of them, kid. Show 'em with your work." Ellie would nod, but the words didn't erase the ache. She loved the garage, the clank of tools, the puzzle of a broken engine, the satisfaction of a job done right. But she wondered if she'd ever be more than the punchline of a tired joke. One sweltering July morning, everything changed. A beat-up Chevy Impala limped into the shop, its engine coughing like a smoker's lungs. Behind the wheel was a stranger, a man in his late 30s with tired eyes and a threadbare jacket. His name was Marcus, and he carried a quiet desperation that hung heavier than the summer heat. "I need this fixed," he said, his voice low. "It's all I got to get to my daughter in Ohio. She's sick and I gotta get there." He pulled out a thin wad of cash, barely enough for a spark plug, let alone the major repairs the car needed. Tom took one look at the engine and shook his head. "This thing's shot. Timing belt's gone, radiators leaking, and the transmission's on its last legs. It'll cost more than the car's worth." Marcus's face fell, his hands gripping the counter. "I don't have that kind of money," he said. "But I need to see her. She's only 6. Cancer's eating her up." His voice cracked, and the shop went quiet. Even Frank, usually quick with a quip, just stared at his coffee. Ellie, who'd been tightening bolts on a Ford in the corner, overheard. She saw the way Marcus's shoulders slumped, the way his fingers trembled as he counted his crumpled bills. Something stirred in her, a mix of empathy and defiance. She'd spent years swallowing her pride, proving herself in silence. Maybe this was a chance to do more than fix a car. Maybe this was a chance to show what she was made of. She approached Marcus, wiping her hands on a rag. "Let me take a look," she said softly. The regulars exchanged glances. Jimmy snorted. What's she gonna do, charm the engine back to life? Frank chuckled, but Ellie ignored them. She knelt by the Impala, her hands moving with the confidence of someone who'd spent a lifetime under hoods. She saw the problems Tom had listed, but she also saw possibilities. The shop had a junkyard out back, full of parts from scrapped cars. She could scavenge, improvise, make it work. "I can fix it," she told Marcus. "Won't be pretty, but it'll get you to Ohio." Marcus looked at her, hope flickering in his eyes. "How much?" he asked. Ellie hesitated. She knew the shop's finances were tight. Tom had been stressing over bills all month, but she also knew what it felt like to be dismissed, to feel like you didn't matter. "No charge," she said. "Just get to your daughter." The garage erupted. "No charge?" Jimmy bellowed. "Girl, you trying to bankrupt your daddy?" Frank shook his head. "This ain't a charity, Ellie. You can't just give away work." Even Tom looked uneasy, pulling her aside. "Ellie, we can't afford this. That car's a money pit." But Ellie stood her ground. "Dad, he needs this. I'll make it work. I'll use scrap parts, do it on my own time. Trust me. Tom sighed, his eyes searching hers. He saw the fire there, the same stubborn spark he'd had when he opened the shop 30 years ago. All right, he said finally, but you're on your own with this one. Ellie threw herself into the project. After hours, when the shop was dark and the town was asleep, she worked. She scavenged parts from the junkyard, piecing together a patchwork fix for the Impala. A radiator from a totaled Buick, a timing belt from a rusted Honda, a set of salvaged spark plugs. She made it work. Her hands blistered, her back ached, but she kept going, driven by the image of a 6-year-old girl waiting for her father. Word spread through Willow Creek. The regulars who'd mocked her for years started watching. At first, they came to scoff. Jimmy would lean against the wall, arms crossed, muttering about wasted time. Frank would sip his coffee and say, "Hope you're ready to eat the cost when that heap falls apart." But as days turned to weeks, their tone shifted. They saw the Impala transform piece by piece under Ellie's hands. They saw the way she worked late into the night, her flashlight bobbing in the dark. They saw the care she poured into every bolt, every weld. One evening, as Ellie wrestled with a stubborn transmission, Jimmy lingered after closing. "Why are you doing this, Ellie?" he asked, his usual bravado gone. "You don't even know this guy." Ellie paused, wiping sweat from her brow. "Because I can," she said simply. "Because if I don't, who will?" Jimmy didn't reply, but he didn't laugh either. For the first time, he looked at her not as the mechanic's daughter, but as Ellie. The town began to rally. Mrs. Carter, who ran the diner, started bringing Ellie coffee and sandwiches during her late-night shifts. Kids from the high school stopped by, offering to fetch tools or hold lights. Even Frank, gruff as ever, slipped a set of new spark plugs onto the workbench one morning, muttering, "Found 'em in the back. Might as well use 'em." Ellie smiled, knowing he'd bought them himself. 3 weeks later, the Impala was ready. It wasn't pretty, patches of mismatched paint, a faint rattle in the exhaust, but it ran. Ellie handed Marcus the keys, her hands shaking from exhaustion and pride. "It'll get you to Ohio," she said. Marcus stared at the car, then at her, his eyes wet. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. "You don't have to," Ellie replied. "Just be with your daughter." As Marcus drove off, the garage was silent. The regulars who'd gathered to watch stood speechless. Jimmy's mouth hung open. Frank's cane trembled in his hand. Tom, leaning against the counter, had tears in his eyes. They'd seen Ellie work miracles, not just on the car, but on their hearts. She'd taken their laughter, their doubt, and turned it into something undeniable, a testament to kindness, to resilience, to the power of one person choosing to care. Ellie didn't say a word. She just picked up her wrench and went back to work, the mechanic's daughter no longer. She was Ellie Harper, and the garage would never be the same.